Hi guys! Today is the start of my new Romanticism series, particularly focusing on John Keats in this case, and today we'll be doing To Autumn, which was written in 1819. I thought I might as well mention it's filmed in a really rough way. It's the first one I've done, and so it needs to be perfected over time, which hopefully I'll be able to do. If you have any suggestions, please go ahead and comment them below. It's currently like 10 o'clock at night, so I'm really tired and I'm filming on my phone, and also hence the really bad lighting, but we'll work through it, you know, first video. Additionally, I've just finished college this summer, so I've been updating my website, blog and videos, which is again why I'm starting a new series. I'll link everything below and, you know, like, comment and subscribe. Okay, so it's written in 1819, and we're just going to go through some of the key features here. So it's important to note it was written around the autumn equinox, particularly celebrating autumn, and that's why it's a valedictory poem. What else have we got? It's 10 to 11 syllables per line, which can represent the numerical months, so to speak, in autumn, so the 10th and 11th month, and there's typically 11 lines per stanza, and the 3 stanzas can represent the 3 months in autumn, so it's all very numerical and very tight structurally in that sense. The seasons could also represent human life, so moving from spring, birth, into autumn and winter, which represents death. This poem is also progressive, so it's cyclical, and like early to late autumn it moves through structurally in that sense. So if we look at some of the language, if we highlight maturing, trying to choose a colour takes ages if it's me. Okay, and that's like a sense of growing weaker, like moving throughout the year. But again, that can be to do with human age, so getting older, getting a bit weaker. So within this poem there's a lot of like pagan symbolism and beliefs represented, so blessing and several other words that we shall pick up on later. Unfortunately, I didn't realise that this video would take longer than the audio to record, so apologies for the pauses. Okay, so now we're on to some phonology in the poem. So moss cottage trees. It's quite soft sounding, and so Keats is trying to represent autumn that way. So yeah, soft consonants represented there, which is actually quite Keatsian in his attitude towards writing poetry. There may be some creaking in the background, that's just my chair being, well, a bit old. Okay, so for the first stanza, if I would care to hurry up in the past, like, come on. Okay, so the first stanza here is representing the sun working together with the earth to produce a harvest, basically. Okay, so what I've just underlined here is kind of like the language of autumn. It's very, you kind of hear these words and you're definitely reminded of autumn seasons, maybe just moving from autumn into winter, so like Halloween time. Also, for those who are unsure, the word gourd, so Gourd, is actually referring to like pumpkins, and that sort of part of the season. And yeah, so there's definitely words like fill, swell, plump that has connotations of an abundance of produce, not just like a decent amount, but lots of it. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the last line of the first stanza, because Keats here has actually contracted some words to definitely fit that 10 to 11 syllables per line, which really shows his devotion to trying to keep this particular poem in a certain structure representing autumn. Okay, and then we move on to the first 3 lines of the second stanza, which is, well, a celebration of autumn. It's kind of like, especially the use of the rhetorical question, suggesting that actually there is no better time than autumn. And so the idea of sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find, and so on, is suggesting that actually people who are going abroad for warmer weather in other countries is actually missing the better part of the year in England. So yeah, soft lifted by the winnowing wind is definitely like, another Keatsian phrase. It's got soft consonants, it's very natural imagery of winnowing wind, and there's alliteration in there as well. So again, there's quite a few words in that stanza particularly, so like drowsed, reaped, twined, that are definitely Keats's favourite words, I guess, in the sense that you'll see a lot of these different words throughout his poetry. So yeah, drowse particularly is a sleep reference, which comes on to La Belle Dame sans Merci, which again we'll probably go over at a later date. But yeah, Keats definitely has a thing with sleep and kind of dream states. So next bit we're looking at, okay, so the last bit of the second stanza. Okay, so we've got agricultural references and that part of the year where it's harvest, and so relating to cider press and watching the last oozings hours by hours is basically kind of enjoying the day. You know, you work really hard out in the field and then you come back to kind of celebrate your work by having a drink, basically. Okay, so first 2 lines, 2 rhetorical questions just there, yep. And this is kind of Keats's advice on depression, funnily enough. So Keats kind of in the Romantic era would, and other Romantic poets as well, would try to express their kind of advice and general feeling towards certain emotions. So they would kind of advise that you go along with the bad as well as the good, so you can only have ups if you have the opposite as well. So he is basically saying, in this case, try to appreciate what is going on around you. Okay, so the use of full-grown lambs is quite significant because he could have just said adult sheep or sheep, whereas he's kind of referring to a cycle again. So full-grown lambs, they started off as lambs and now they're full-grown. So he's kind of gone full circle in the sense that he's started off early autumn and now he's finishing off around winter time where nature will take its course, basically. Yeah, so then he starts to mention like hedge crickets and redbreast whistling. That's basically talking about robins in Christmas time and more going into the winter, colder months. So yeah, we've gone full circle now, and those last lines are, yeah, more winter-based, and sorry for the terrible pun, or Game of Thrones reference if you watch. Winter is coming indeed in this poem. So yeah, Keats is forewarning of future months to come. And as I say, going full circle, it's a progressive poem, so it's quite nice that he finishes leaning more towards winter than staying stagnant in autumn. So yeah, Romanticism definitely focuses on like the movement of time and nature. So the fact Keats has done this throughout the poem is definitely keeping to his beliefs and cultural values, I guess. Okay, so just some final things to point out. So there are a lot of rhetorical questions throughout this poem, which are typically used to kind of like either give advice or persuade others to realise how beautiful autumn is. So I'm just going to highlight those. And a few other features that are kind of throughout the poem, particularly like linguistic devices. So yeah, we've got fricative alliteration in there and an unclimactic ending, which makes it cyclical, which is basically, you know, going through a cycle. It's quite an abrupt ending, I suppose, which adds to the fact that there should be progression afterwards. So like, it's almost like Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Like right now he should be writing another poem going from winter into spring, but obviously Keats didn't decide to do that. Okay, I guess there's not much more to note specifically on the poem. We're almost about done. We're just about to finish highlighting. As far as making any other notes, I want to talk about context, but I'll be talking about that separately from actually the poem being on screen. And yeah, just another thing to note, it's quite personified, which is key in this poem because it's a feature of an ode or an elegy, which is basically the idea of a valedictorian poem. Hi again, I hope you found that informative. I thought I might as well add some context for you. It was written in Winchester in the UK in 1819, just after the Peterloo Massacre. I will go on to explain what the Peterloo Massacre is about, but it's like 10 o'clock and it's quite lengthy if you want to get into the political and socio-economic side of things for that particular point in history. For an exam, it's kind of important to note Keats's attitude towards the Peterloo Massacre as opposed to Shelley. He's quite subdued and a bit ignorant about the political side of things at that point in time. He really focuses on himself, his beliefs, so romanticism, and his general lack of political human awareness, in the sense that he definitely focuses on nature more within his poetry, whereas Shelley reacts quite angrily and quite actively towards the Peterloo Massacre. So I definitely add that in for an exam, just kind of like a comparison of their two reactions to that point in history. As for general context, I'd mention Keats's love of nature and trying to celebrate that, and also his romanticism side of him trying to advise people on like depression and certain emotions. So I hope you find this useful for revision purposes. Again, any suggestions for videos or any information I should add in on a later video, let me know. Again, like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day.